Call to order the Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, July 16th, 2020. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Harlicker, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Knobloch,
Here.
Commissioner Casey,
Here.
Commissioner Heikkila,
Here.
Commissioner Bradley,
Here.
Commissioner Smokey,
Here.
Commissioner Geisler,
Here.
and Chair Schwartz.
Here. All right, our first order of business this evening is to adopt our agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move adoption of the agenda. Second.
Motion by Heikkila, second by Geisler. Any changes, corrections, additions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? The agenda is adopted. Next, we have approval of the minutes from our June meeting.
Chair Schwartz,
Commissioner Knobloch.
I propose that we approve the minutes from the June 18th meeting.
I'll second.
Motion by Knobloch, second by Smokey. Any corrections, additions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
The minutes are approved with 2 abstentions, Commissioners Bradley and Heikkila. Our first order of business, planning case, excuse me, 20-8 is site plan for a 6-unit townhouse development at 2403 109th Avenue Northwest, Burg Homes. Mr. Harlicker.
Yes, good evening, Chair and Commissioners. What is being proposed here is a 6-unit townhome development. It's located on 109th Avenue to the south, with single-family residence on the west, north, and Hoover Elementary School on the east. You can see it's a 8.95 acre lot. It's 150 feet wide and 260 feet deep. It's not 8.95, excuse me, it should be 0.895. In looking at it, we've got lot coverage is 48%. We got the setbacks along from 109th is 35 feet. 15 feet from here, or 22 feet, excuse me, from the driveway to the front of the garage. On the east property line, it's 65 feet from the Hoover Elementary property. From the west, it's 40 feet to the building. The edge of the patios are at 25 feet. And from the north property line, it's set back 45 feet. The lot coverage and setbacks meet the city code requirements. The way it's laid out, you've got the driveway coming in here with garages in the front of the building facing Hoover, and the back side of the building with the patios facing the west. They've got parallel parking stalls along this side of the driveway here. 3 are required, 6 are proposed. There are also 4 parking spaces on each, for each townhouse, 2 in the garage and 2 available in the driveway. Computer's out, so we're going old school tonight. I'm sorry for the delay here. This is the proposed landscape plan. just go on the west side, you've got a mix of evergreens, ornamental, and overstory trees. Then they've got plantings in between each of the patios. This is the north end here, and you've got plantings along, foundation plantings along the north end. And again, you've got a mix of overstory, ornamental trees. You've got the evergreen trees here at the end of the driveway. And then along the east property line, we've got overstory trees, ornamental, and then again, some evergreens. They've got landscaping between each of the driveways. In the larger areas, they've also proposed ornamental trees. And then along 109th, they've got overstory trees, planting bed, foundation plantings on the south edge of the building, and a planting bed on the east side of the driveway coming in. This is the grading plan. They are currently working with Coon Creek Watershed District and the City Engineering Department on formalizing the stormwater management plan. But because it's proximity to a city well, they can't do infiltration, so they're working on spreading out the drainage along this area of the site here. Can also see this dashed line going across here. It's shown as a possible utility easement. They are currently investigating that. If it turns out to be an easement, it'll have to be vacated as part of this project and the preliminary plat, which the commission will consider next. They're also planning on platting this, so each of these townhouses will be on their own lot. These are the proposed, this is the front elevation. It's a mix of lap siding. You've got kind of they call it oceanside. The applicant is here, so when he comes up, he's got samples of the exterior materials. So you've got a mix in colors from what I would kind of say a turquoise blue maybe, and then a darker blue here, and this is kind of a grayish tone, gray stone it's called. They've got board and batten in the up along the roof, and they've got a stone base along the foundation here and supporting the pillars. These are the end elevations here, and these here are the rear elevations. Staff is recommending to break this up and to provide some interest, that they pull some of the architectural features on the front of the building and also put them on the back, or else possibly, I don't know if there's a way to actually bump out these back edges here so it's more of a staggered feature. With that, I'll answer questions. The applicant is in the audience today also to provide a brief presentation and answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Harlicker. Commission, any questions for Mr. Harlicker? Commissioner Smokey.
Question for Mr. Harlicker. So with the structure of the size and so forth, are there any requirements around trash collection and removal? Anything?
Commissioner Smokey, typically not. Townhouse, it's not required because a lot of them will have individual,
Okay.
like single-family residences, they'll
Certainly.
bring their garbage out on garbage day.
And so have we factored in, because it is a single driveway in kind of a thing, is there ample room for a garbage truck to get through there and back? Especially in the winter, I think about.
Yeah,
snow
they've got
removal.
a 24-foot wide drive aisle,
And so
and
that's
then it
sufficient.
widens out for the parking stall, so there should be room for
Perfect.
a
Thank
truck
you.
to get in there and then back out.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Casey?
Mr. Harlicker, so I didn't get a packet this time, so I'm seeing this, just kind of for the first time, but is there there's a drive aisle in off 109th, right?
Correct.
And then adjacent to that is the 6 parallel parking spots. That's another drive aisle, so to speak, but it could be parked cars.
Yes,
And then is there an exit on the north end?
there is not.
Okay. so
One of
that-
the engineering comments was to provide a turnaround area at the end here, so we
Okay.
could, get in, turn around, and drive face out.
And come out the same way. So what is that little flare out at the north end on the right side up there? It looks like a driveway, yeah, right,
There's no parking area.
Okay.
Again, that'll provide space for people to turn around and then come out again.
okay, all right, thank you.
Chair Schwartz,
Commissioner Knobloch?
I have a question for Mr. Harlicker. Can you provide some more context or information in regard to the 5-foot wide utility easement across the middle of the property?
Commissioner Knobloch, I cannot. We don't have that information. It showed up on some of their research, but they weren't able to verify if it's actually in place. That's something they're working on. And it is one of the conditions that staff's recommending should the commission approve this tonight, that they verify that, and if it is actually in place, they need to vacate it. It's also included as a condition of the preliminary plat.
A follow-up question. Is there any potential that if something doesn't proceed with the easement, that it could impact this proposal?
Yeah, Commissioner, if they can't vacate that easement, they can't build over it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Heckler?
Mr. Harlicker, was this not discovered on the previous, when we went through this about a year ago?
They did not show it on the one that we looked at last year.
Okay.
How come? Just,
That's why it's listed as possible easement.
no, okay. Just showed up and they'll deal with
When
it
in
now?
their due diligence, they saw that it might be there, so they put it on the plans.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Bradley?
Mr. Harlicker, there's nothing shown on the drawings, and I'm assuming because of its close proximity to a school that there's fire hydrant service nearby this development?
I don't have a copy of the utility plan with me. That will be something that the fire marshal and engineering will look at. It's quite possible that they'll require a hydrant somewhere along that drive aisle there.
Thank you. The third page of the development plans show a hydrant being inserted right by the no parking sign with a water main running down the driveway. There.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Smokey?
So I have one more question on the building, you mentioned that, I think it's the north side where it is pretty flat, right? So, and you're asking the petitioner to make some changes to that to break it up, right? To make it maybe a little bit more consistent with the other side?
Yep.
Right, okay. So for tonight, since we are actually asked to approve, what exactly are we agreeing to then if we don't know what those changes are going to be?
Commissioner Smokey, I would ask that if the commission desires modifications to that rear elevation, that they provide staff and the applicant some guidance on what you're looking for. From a staff's perspective, I suppose if you take the architectural features that are on the front elevation and include them on the back, I think that would provide sufficient
So suggestion.
breaks in there.
Yeah.
When you start staggering the townhouses, that's a lot more involved and affects both the front and rear elevations.
So, Mr. Harlicker, could we just change recommendation or expand on condition 8, that it would, rear elevation would, design elements that would be approved by staff?
Something like that. So add to the end of that sentence perhaps, and approved by staff,
Yeah.
as simple as that.
As staff, I would like some guidance from the planning commission.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Geisler?
From a guidance perspective, are you thinking about, so if we were to say the central 2 units be staggered outward from the outward 4 units, or are you looking for something to say every other, or what kind of,
Well,
there's a lot of hypothetical
yeah,
options here, so.
Commissioner Geisler, maybe you got the front entrance, the porticos, maybe put that over the patio and the windows on the backside. That would give it some interest.
It's a little difficult because they have the pitches between the units already, and then, I mean, I'm not an architect, so it's a little difficult for me
Yeah.
to say. I do agree, it needs to be broken up. It looks like an apartment building this way, or something that it's like, you know, and I know that that's not the desire. And so, something that would differentiate the units, you can kind of see maybe where they start and stop, for
Yeah.
example, something that would do that. I'm not sure if it is a change in the material, where I'm just being completely hypothetical here, but where unit 1 is brick, but unit 2 is siding, and unit 3 is brick, you know, something like that. If there is a way to extend out, you know, every other unit, even if it's a foot, to break it out where the sliding glass door and the adjacent windows are, so if those like if there's 2 units that extend out even a couple feet to just make it like a bay type of an extension, and not asking for anything, you know, extreme, but then, so then it too can carry forward the features of the other side of the pitches and so forth. So those would be my suggestions, just anything that can break it up so that it doesn't look like an apartment complex.
Yep. Maybe we could get some input from the applicant.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest we wait until we hear from the applicant on his presentation before we make any
Please, yep,
firm decisions on that.
thank you.
Any other questions then at this time? Petitioner like to come up, give his presentation
Yep, which way should I go?
to the microphone over there. Please give your name and address for the record.
Yeah, Greg Peterson, Noburg Homes. My address is 4071 211th Lane, Northwest, and that's in Oak Grove. I don't have a big presentation by any means, but discussing the back a little bit, we can absolutely dress that up a little bit. It's a little harder, I think, and I'll have to talk to my builder, extending it, but I think we were planning to have, you know, a lot of times in these complexes, they have, you know, 6-foot high, maintenance-free, white or gray separation between the units. Sometimes that's nice. I don't know what you guys think of that. And then we can definitely, you know, make some peaks over that, over the sliding glass door in the back too. That'd be fine. So we're open to whatever you guys think and whatever Scott thinks, for sure.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Casey?
So you would, you know, it talked in the conditions about staggering the units. That's what you want to stay away from. Is
Yeah,
that
we'd like to
correct?
stay away from that.
That
gets
affects the footprint of the
yes,
unit and
yes.
the
So
overall design.
maybe we can bump out the patio and have a little top over it, and then put a, 6-foot high, maintenance-free, maybe from here to here, and then the patio here, so that kind of breaks it up too.
Oh, you mean jutting out at
Yes,
90
coming out.
degrees from the
Yeah, so you can
back,
see from
yeah.
the back, you can see clearly where,
Mm-hmm.
each unit is, and then the landscaping, kind of on both sides of that. I think that'd look nice.
So kind of like a privacy wall between the
Yes.
patios.
Yeah, so you can sit out on your patio without, staring at the neighbor 10 feet away from you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How deep of a distance are you suggesting for those?
I think, my guess is that probably between 6 and 8 feet. Depends on how far that patio goes out, but maybe 10.
Do you have cement patio slabs?
Yes, yeah, we'd
How
cement.
big are those?
Oh, I don't remember the size on those, but those would probably be 8 by 8 or 8 by 10. I mean, they'd be, a place for a grill, chairs, and almost a room size, smaller room size, 10 by 10 maybe.
I would think the partition depth should be at least as
Yes,
deep
as deep as that concrete
as
pad.
the pad.
Perfect, yep, that'd be fine, yep.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Geisler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My only concern about leaning into that is that what does that do to the landscaping plan that's already planned off the back there for having those ornamentals and ground cover shrubs in between the units already as well? So, I mean, are we talking about sticking a fence in the middle of that and then landscaping on each side?
Landscaping on each side.
Okay.
I think that'd be the goal, yep.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
And, oh, if I may.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
The only other thing that I was saying about anything architecturally brought back is I would just hate to see the impact of any of the windows that's already up in that second story of losing any of that size. Hopefully
Right.
we could avoid that.
We'd like not to change those windows up there.
Okay.
Those are nice,
Yep.
for sure.
Commissioner Heikler?
I think, going back again to what we did a year ago, we talked about the wall, the privacy wall or dividing wall between each unit. And going back to the old thing where sometimes the best neighbor is a fence. If you have a neighbor you don't particularly care for, you're gonna, the wall,
Yeah.
sometimes resolves a lot of issues.
Yep. And then did you have some
Oh,
materials?
Yep. Nothing too exciting, but just kind of the gray and blue. The gray would be the primary siding, and then the blue would be the accent. So, again, nothing.
Are you talking about a couple shades of blue or?
Yeah,
Just
so we
what
go mainly this, a lot of less of this, and then the board and batten would be a different shade of this too. So it'd be 3 different colors on that front.
In materials?
Yeah, yeah, along with the brick also, and that would be pretty standard.
And is the brick wrapping a post or something? Is that what I inferred? or no?
I can't remember if we've got a post there or not, I don't.
The brick shows to be wrapping around
Yes.
the base of the post.
Yeah, so
And
post
then on the front of the,
on the front, yep, so probably about waist high.
Okay.
Any questions, Commission, for the petitioner? At this time, anyway? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, I will open a public hearing in planning case 20-8, the site plan for a 6-unit townhouse development at 2403 109th Avenue. Anyone, anyone wish to speak at the public hearing, please come up to the microphone, give your name and address for the record, please, and limit your comments to 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Scott Nisbet. I reside at 2410 110th Avenue Northwest, which is the property on the north and west corner of the proposed building site. We were here last year when we did this whole thing once already. we're still not real happy about the whole idea of having neighbors like this. Not to say I have anything against townhomes, anything like that. More the size. It's a small property, it's an odd shape, and you want two-story townhomes, which means, as came up many times in the last meetings, it's a barracks. You can put as many dormers and as much lipstick as you want on it, it still looks like a barracks. Absolutely not in favor of breaking up staggering the buildings, because that gives us a much bigger illusion of the size of the building. So I have absolutely no desire to see that happen. One of the things to Ms. Smokey, you were asking about the garbage trucks and things like that. I've been in the transportation industry a long time. Garbage trucks, emergency vehicles, everything else will back into that property and then drive straight out. There will not be room to turn around in there. If there isn't a single source garbage collection, that means on garbage day, 6 trucks backing up 200 feet. Emergency vehicles, same thing. When they come in, it's the same thing. Speaking on behalf of my other neighbor to the north who could not make it tonight, it's headlights, it's noise, it's a lot of things. Our main concerns we have are privacy and security. In the last proposal, it was recommended to have a fence along the north side of the property. I'd like to still see that. I'd also like to see the property to the west have a fence as well, because Mr. Champ is going to end up with 6 new neighbors, and that'll be very disruptive for him. On the privacy side, it seems to be on the end unit to the north and south end, there's one small window. I'd like to see that window removed on the north side. That would retain our property, or our privacy, into our backyard. I don't think anybody likes having anybody staring into their backyard. I certainly don't. And I don't think with the center 4 units not having that window, that it's that much of a detraction to take that away from the end unit. That's all I have. Thank you.
My name is Sandra Carter. I live at 2420 110th Avenue. I would be on the west side of Scott, so the property is to the south and east of my lot, but borders on the corner. Again, these are a lot of concerns that we voiced a year ago when the same, basically the same type of building was going to go in. Hoover Elementary School is directly on the east side of this, and there's always a concern for the safety of the school children. With the added driveway and traffic immediately there on 109th, there are a lot of walkers as well as the bus traffic. So that's a concern. I was happy to hear of the concerns about the architecture and the visual appeal of the building, and hope that the city will follow through with making the backside of that a little bit more than a barracks. But we are a community of ramblers, and so to have this tall building become part of our neighborhood is a concern because of the privacy, because of the safety. It's something new to us, of course. And again, I agree with Scott, it would be nice to see that one window on the north end unit eliminated. One thing I haven't heard is if these units are to be rental units or if they are to be purchased individually.
Purchased in that 289 to 310 range.
Okay, and an association will be a part of the complex?
Yes.
That's a big plus. I guess the only other thing I have is, as a neighbor, I am retired. I'm home all of the time. And I would hope that there is a noise ordinance that would prevent early and late building noises in the neighborhood. I did talk to Scott, and he said 7 o'clock in the morning is the earliest that you can And I don't know how late in the day it goes, but just a mention. And of course, a privacy fence is a very desirable item for us on the north and the west. For Stan Champ on the west side, like Scott said, he has 6 new neighbors. It would be awesome if there could be a maximum height privacy fence on both sides to eliminate a lot of traffic and, again, to add security and privacy. Thank you for your concern.
Thank you.
Evening, folks. My name is Stan Champ. I live at 2421 109th Avenue Northwest. I am on the west side of the proposal site. I think I'm probably affected the most by all of this because of the length of the property. Earlier in the week, I visited the city offices here, and Scott Harlicker was kind enough to show me the layout of the property. And one thing that I was hoping for, of course, as my neighbors had stated, and I'm in agreement with, was that I see no privacy fence. I thought with 6 units and the number of people that could very well be living in those 6 units, that there would be, I would expect a fair amount of garbage that's generated. Let's face it, you lose garbage out of trucks, garbage flies. I'm also concerned about pets. I'm concerned even about people, in particular children, wandering over into my side. And with that many units, I really think that it's not unreasonable for us to ask, and me in particular, not to ask for a privacy fence the length of the property. We went through this once before a year ago, and I honestly don't know what became of that at the time, if the city had approved the privacy fence once before, which is unimportant really now, though. The other thing I'd like to make mention too, because of the length of the property that I have, there was a question there's lilac bushes about 75% of the property, and it was thought at the time, but it wasn't certain though, that those lilac bushes belonged to that site there at 2403. And I had seen that stakes were placed, I don't know, several weeks ago, and I had learned that if those stakes are correct, that most of those lilac bushes would likely belong to me, if not all of them. I would like to see, I'd like to see property stakes every 50 feet, just to make sure that there's no question about who they belong to, really. I don't want to see them. I don't want to see them go if they belong to me. And I think that's about all I have to say at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I add one more thing? Sure. You had mentioned, someone had mentioned that there were to be 4 cars allowed per unit. And it's my understanding the city code is you can have 2 cars per driver. So that would be the code, right? I mean,
Yes.
you're not going to have 4 cars there if you
That would
have
be,
one driver.
that's correct. There's 4 parking spaces available. So if you could have 2 cars in the garage and you've got a guest,
Okay.
they'd have room to park on site.
Thanks.
Anyone else wish to speak at the public hearing?
Can I just ask one question? The neighbors, would you rather have a privacy fence and a few less trees? I mean, because we're kind of going along that property line, but we could definitely do a privacy fence. But a lot of those trees are right there. We'd put bushes and stuff on the inside of the privacy fence. I don't know.
I think that would be more of an answer for Stan to have.
I'd like to see a privacy fence, yeah, it would be the length of the property unless.
On the west, yeah, okay.
As well as on the north.
Yeah, that's fine.
Anyone else wish to speak at the public hearing? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Mr. Harlicker, could you show the elevations again, specifically that north elevation with that has the side view of the, with that one window?
Here and there.
And we can definitely take those out.
Do you know, Mr. Peterson, approximately the size of that window?
I don't,
Because
but
looking at that diagram, it doesn't look like it's a very big window.
no, and we can definitely remove it, that's fine. That makes no difference.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Smokey?
So is that, so since we aren't seeing the inside, right, what is on the other side of that window? Is that like at the top of a staircase? Is it actually possible for, it looks like it's pretty high up there
Yeah.
in the pitch, so I'm just wondering if it isn't just an access, a light access?
More of a light access.
Here's the floor
up
plan.
stairs.
It
Yeah.
looks like it might be up above
Bathroom.
bathroom
bathroom.
probably.
Yeah.
Inside the bathroom though, or is it like inside the attic, just to clarify?
I think that's inside the bathroom.
Inside the bathroom?
Yeah.
So a bathroom window would possibly be a clouded style window anyway that you wouldn't even be able to see out.
Sure, yeah, we could definitely do that way. Yeah, clouded, so you're not even looking out, it just brings in light. but
Just,
yeah.
just allows a little bit of light into the,
Yeah.
into the bathroom
That'd be
area.
fine. Yep.
Mr. Chair? I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Heckler?
Yeah, that's my thought too. If you have a bathroom up there with no windows, that's pretty dark.
Right,
It's going to be pretty dark
yeah,
inside the bathroom. And the second thing is, I know we talked about this last year as well. Every one of us has a house with a window, and we all have windows, and people, can see, wherever you are. We have upstairs windows at our house. We can look into the yard of our next door neighbors. So, and particularly if it's a bathroom light or a bathroom window, I think that asking quite a bit to have the people not have a window in their bathroom.
Of course, the inside units wouldn't have that window anyway.
Right, they wouldn't, but maybe their bathrooms are located differently inside those buildings.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Bradley?
Mr. Peterson? Thank you. Just wanted to ask a quick question with regard, you did indicate that this is a common interest community with an HOA.
yep.
Would the HOA potentially be given the power to select a common refuse hauler for all of the units? They may be able to negotiate a better price for
Yeah.
individuals that way. You'd cut down on maybe the garbage truck traffic.
So if I understand right, maybe at the closer to 109th, a bigger dumpster-ish that everybody dumps their garbage in and one guy, or the truck comes once a week, hauls that out and dumps it, is that?
That wasn't necessarily it. I mean, it could be if you think it's more efficient for the units, but what I was getting at is if you have one truck that ends up
Yes.
backing in and collects for all 6 units.
Yes, we can definitely do that.
So-
Definitely do that. So you don't have Walters and then LePage and then Ace. Yeah, we can have one. We can make that in the association, for sure.
Mr. Chair.
Because you would have to understand that if you were to have a centralized garbage collection, you would have to have an enclosure
Right,
for that, so.
right. I think we're better off, like your suggestion, one company through the association, 6 garbage buckets, they back in, dump them, and go up.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Smokey?
And I just want to add on to that, I think the individual is a much better answer, primarily to where you just suggested be placed. You don't have any way to monitor that other people wouldn't be dumping in there,
Yes.
and it becomes a horrible mess.
Yes.
So I'm much more in favor of one service if you can
Yes.
organize that. I just don't know if we have the answer though here as to whether or not that's possible. So again, do we add it, how do we add that to the provision?
Yeah,
I believe most homeowner associations have part of their association that it's
Correct, okay,
one garbage collector.
okay.
yes,
great.
and we can absolutely do that, and I agree, dumpsters anywhere are magnets for everybody in their dog to dump stuff.
So then let's talk about the fence.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Geisler.
With respect to the fence, actually, I was gonna say on the north side there, I think it makes a lot of sense for sure to have one, just mainly because of the alignment of the driveway. Headlights coming straight in, straight forward, especially at least along the easterly half, so from the middle of the unit forward, that would cover a lot of overwash, or however, wherever that would be, obviously closer to the driveway will block more. The other item on the westerly side there, I was gonna make this observation anyway. The river birch, while it is an approved city tree, I've got one myself. It is the messiest tree I've ever had, and 6 of them. It's not a neighborly tree, I can tell you that much. So I would lean on if the neighbors would prefer to have fewer trees and a fence and do landscaping inside. Now that leaves them with a blank white wall to stare at, which is, it kind of creates their own opportunity to do with what they will.
Plant on their side, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Whatever they'd like to do.
Yeah.
But I was just gonna caution against 6 clusters of river birch would make a lot of twigs for whoever's doing the landscape cleanup there
Like,
every
yep,
spring.
that sounds good.
So,
Yep, we can pull those out for sure.
lots of ornamental options besides that.
Right, yeah.
And Mr. Harlicker, since we don't have the complete packet with all the information, as far as number of trees, if we were to remove some of the trees in place of a fence, are we still in good shape as far as landscape requirements?
Yeah, I think the trees that are proposed comply with the code, so you can't just put a fence up and remove. You can, move them around a little bit, maybe pull them closer to the patio and leave room there, but the trees are required.
And
Maybe
maybe,
change the species, like Commissioner Geisler said, to, autumn blazed maples or some other type of, I'm partial to those because they grow fast and they look pretty in the fall, so.
yeah, they do.
So then back to the fence, we're talking, what, a 6-foot or an 8-foot?
I think it's 6 foot.
6-foot privacy fence, the entire side of the west side
West and north.
and north?
Yep, I don't know how much that costs, but yep,
And as far as material, you're thinking
maintenance free,
maintenance-free plastic,
yeah. Yeah, either a
White vinyl.
white vinyl. Yeah.
white vinyl, or
Yep.
a more neutral color
Neutral gray,
possibly?
Yeah, white, yep.
Do we want to suggest a specific color, Mr. Harlicker?
You could. The maximum height allowed is, typically you get 6-foot panels and then get the post up above. So the maximum height to the highest point on the fence is 7 feet. So it's typically a 6-foot panel and then the top of the post, some sort of decorative piece on the top of the post. That's where the 7 feet comes from.
So then we would have a condition 9, it would be 6-foot high privacy fence of,
I would say a
Great.
complementary color to the building aesthetic, just to not limit it so much depending on what's available.
Not going to say white.
complementary color. The entire length of the west side. And across the north.
Would they be connected? Would it be continuous?
A
Coming-
continuous fence.
That, okay. It would make the 90-degree turn and be all one piece.
Yeah. Mr. Peterson, that
Yeah, that
Works
should
for you?
work. I understand, I mean, I definitely understand the neighbors and it's been, that land's been sitting there forever, I'm sure. So, yeah, we can make that work.
and commission, everybody in agreement with that?
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Smokey?
I just wanted to share too, I do think that this is a reasonable plan that you have here in terms of the the 6 units and so forth for this property. I recall last year when we were going this, and correct me, Commissioner, if I'm not remembering correctly, but I think we had it facing the other way.
Yeah.
Was initially what it was, and so.
Driveway was on the other
Right,
side.
and I think the argument then, of course, was that, I mean, the idea was that, well, you'd rather have the back of the house facing the school than the front of the house, right? Thinking that it may be more aesthetically appealing to the occupants of the homes that way. But definitely, that was then, you'd have all that traffic with the neighbors coming in and out with the driveway. So I do want to just remind people, I think that this is a good change to help knock some of that down. I get that it's not ideal, to have a big structure like this come in next to individual residents like that. But if I recall, there's a similar structure or property just down the street and on the corner of 109th yet. It's 2 individual, 3-unit complex, but it's 6 units there. I do think that property is a little bigger and probably gives a little more distance in the width, but still, I drive by that and I see that is, it kept up well. I don't see a lot of garbage or, it looks like it's really kept up. So I'm hoping this is going to be the same through whatever arrangements are made, but I do think that this is a better solution than what they have. I am still a little concerned. I like the landscaping on the back. I hadn't really looked at that when we were talking about the appearance of the back. I think with those border trees, I think that with the landscaping in between, don't overthink it. Don't overdo trying to dress that back up either, because that can look like you're forcing it as well. So whatever recommendations you come back to the staff, I would just caution not to overthink it either, to try and make some egregious changes.
Yeah.
So,
And the
but,
privacy fence might help a lot, since they're not looking
Exactly.
at, the flat.
agreed, yep. So, thank you.
And Mr. Peterson, you aware of these lilac bushes that they're talking about? As far as the positioning? Is it on your property or on,
I trust my surveyors, so I'm betting it's on your property.
It is,
And that's fine.
based on,
We don't want them. We don't, yeah. So we'll go on this side, yeah. And then when, assuming approval and assuming thing, we'll silt fence right along that property line and nothing is touched on that side.
and Mr. Harlicker, that's enough direction as far as the rear elevation for staff?
I think so. I got a pretty good idea of what the commission is looking for, I think. Some sort of architectural features over the patio door and windows. Is that accurate?
Along with the partitions
Along
between
the
the,
petitions, yes.
I mean, I don't know how much that fence is gonna cost, but I'm just thinking on top of my head, if that fence costs $30,000. Perfect world, I'd like to change the back a little less. You have the fence, the landscaping, maybe just do a little bit over that patio door if possible. But we can talk about that and figure that out.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner
I
Smokey.
do have one more thing I remember, and I'm struggling to find it in my, in the attachments, but, Mr. Harlicker, you had mentioned something, I hope I get this right, about, in terms of like the runoff, right? Something with the corner, how you're gonna have the water dispersed, because there was some limitation, and I'm failing. I just wanted to know if you could bring that up again, and if you could just explain that just a little bit more in terms of what's being planned, and is there any potential challenges that could arise that we don't know about? Like, is this firm and is proven to work, or, do you know my question? So it
Yeah.
is in that bottom left-hand corner there. You were talking about how you were dispersing it.
Yeah, it's.
Or is it the right-
Commissioner,
okay.
Smokey, it's-
Okay, I
The
see.
drainage is kind of set to
The
go
drainage, yes.
this way and slowly drain into the ground, as opposed to digging a basin and letting it sit there and percolate in.
So almost like a rain garden type?
Yeah, I think that's a good
Okay.
description.
Yeah.
Okay, so that will be a rain garden
I don't want to say it's
area?
going to be a rain garden, but it's going to be an area where the water will go.
So the soil will be
percolate in.
particular so that it can absorb the rain, et cetera. And again, it isn't landscape so that it's running to the neighbor's property, correct?
Correct. It
It's
will not
going
go onto the
to,
neighbor's
it
property.
will accept
It'll
it.
stay on site.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair. Commissioner Bradley?
Mr. Harlicker, do you need us to make a condition that the refuse is to be handled by an HOA covenant?
Yes, I would like that to be a condition, maybe condition number 10.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Casey?
I have one more thing. There was talk of a knee wall, a brick knee wall along the front. Was that,
Yeah, that's shown on the building elevations.
can you show me again?
If we could zoom in on this a little bit more. All right. These darker areas across through here,
Okay,
those are that's the stone, and it goes up a little bit higher where the posts are.
okay, so it's attached to the siding.
Correct. It's
Okay,
attached to
I
this,
have
to
it.
the wall.
I had visions of it extending out between the driveways or something. I see what you mean now. Okay, thank you.
All right, Commission, any other concerns?
Chair Schwartz, did you want to add a condition about, I don't know what the term would be, smoking or the window in the bathroom to having a smoky
Clouded.
glaze, so it's light comes in but you can't see out? I know you guys, commissioners were discussing that option.
Or do
Or
we
are
just,
you okay with
just
it being the
removing
way it
it?
is?
Or removing it altogether on the north side?
I think we were trying to give them the option to keep that by putting just a different type of window, but,
You could ask that it be translucent rather than transparent, I suppose.
yeah,
So condition 11 would be
translucent.
window on the north side window translucent?
Mr. Chair,
Is that what we want? Commissioner Geisler?
I guess I'm just questioning, so I understand the neighbor's concern there, but I would ask, how many of them have windows in their back of their home that can see this property too? This is a relatively small window from one unit. It's no different than if a home were being built here from a privacy perspective. I think we're asking a lot already with a fence, with landscaping changes, with refuse handling. I think we can leave this window out of this, and if the builder chooses to add a privacy smoking to it, I think that's an option that they can consider. But I'd hesitate making this a condition of approval, personally. I think we're doing a lot here.
I would tend to agree.
Yeah, I would too, because otherwise you end up with this large blank thing.
It's such a small window to begin with, at least from the diagram.
And additionally, it's a not often used room for an extended period of time. It's not someone's living room door or, backside of the living room space. That's where I'm thinking about that one. It's used, but it's not looked out of.
All right, Commission, anybody have anything else? Are we ready for a motion by someone?
Make the motion.
All right, I think I've got it. I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Geisler,
So, Mr. Chair, I would move approval in planning case 20-8 with the following conditions. All engineering comments be addressed. Park dedication in the amount of $8,160 be paid prior to the issuance of the building permit. Compliance with Title 11. All landscaped areas must be irrigated, including the areas between the driveways. Homeowners Association agreement must be approved by the city attorney. The 5-foot wide utility easement across the middle of the site must be verified and vacated prior to the issuance of a building permit. The applicant must enter into a site security agreement with the city. Variations of the rear elevation be provided or incorporated, by incorporating design elements that are included in the front elevations and be approved by staff. And then an additional condition 9, a 6-foot high privacy fence of complementary color be added along the entire west and north property lines. And then condition 10, a refuse handling service be covered under the HOA with a single provider to be determined by the HOA.
I'll second.
Mr. Chair,
Motion by Geisler, seconded by Smokey. Commissioner Casey.
I would just add on condition 9 that it also be a complimentary color and maintenance-free. That was part of what we agreed on, that it would be maintenance-free. No one has to keep it up then.
Mr. Chair, I will accept a friendly amendment to that motion by adding maintenance-free to condition 9.
All right,
I agree.
all right. Motion by Geisler, seconded by Smokey. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, opposed? Motion carries. This is a decision by the Planning Commission and can be appealed to the City Council within 10 days if someone wishes to do so. Good luck.
Thank you.
And now we'll move on to planning case 20-9, a preliminary plat at 2403 109th Avenue, 6 townhome lots and common area, Norberg Homes. Mr. Harlicker.
Yes, this is the corresponding proposed plat of the property. See the 6 units here, then the common area is the 7th lot. As I stated earlier, excuse me. Park dedication is required in the amount of $1,360 per unit. And again, there is that easement that goes across the middle. So staff is recommending the Planning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat with 3 conditions. All engineering comments be addressed. If verified, the 5-foot utility easement in the middle of the site be vacated, and park dedication in the amount of $8,160 be paid prior to releasing the plat for recording.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Harlicker. Commission, any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Harlicker, Commissioner Geisler.
Mr. Harlicker, there's arguably 7 lots here, and we're only collecting 6 park dedication fees. Is that because the original dedication was collected, since
No, we've got 6 buildable lots.
6 buildable, okay,
Yep,
so that's
and
the
the other one is the
clarification
common
there?
area.
Okay. And then, as far as the overlay goes of these plats versus the footprint of the home, these plats are gonna go basically to the end of the driveway, is that how this is gonna line up, basically the patio to the driveway? Roughly?
No, part of the driveway will extend
Into the common space?
beyond. This is the property line here.
Okay,
So it's this distance here. It'll be outside the property line.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, we need a public hearing in this matter, so at this time I will open a public hearing on planning case 20-9, the preliminary plat at 2403 109th Avenue, 6 townhome units, or townhome lots and common area, Norberg Homes. Anyone wish to speak to this public hearing? Anyone wish to speak to this public hearing? Seeing none, close the public hearing. And commission,
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Smokey.
In planning case 20-9, I'm prepared to recommend approval of the preliminary plat with the following conditions. All engineering comments be addressed. If verified, the 5-foot utility easement in the middle of the site must be vacated. park dedication in the amount of $8,160, be paid prior to the releasing the plat for recording.
I'll second that.
Motion by Smokey, second by Knobloch. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Excuse me, this is a recommendation by the planning commission and decision by the city council at their August 5th meeting. Other business. Mr. Harlicker, you have anything under other business?
We did get a couple applications for next month's meeting. We've got a land use plan amendment and a zone change for some property up off of Northdale to go from single-family residential to high-density residential. And there is a site plan and plat for a fairly new concept for Caribou Coffee. It's a smaller, about a 600 square foot building, and with drive-through and walk-up service only. That's proposed on the southwest corner of Coon Rapids Boulevard and Eager, just across the street from the west end of the Central Homes project.
So kitty corner from Speedway.
Yes.
It's like somebody found a good opportunity.
Staff thinks it's a pretty good fit because the lot is so small. It's kind of a unconventional use for an unconventional lot.
It's their new footprint. Caribou's done this, I think, at 4 or 5 other cities.
Yeah, if you've
It's-
been through Big Lake, they have one.
Yeah,
And it looks like a little chalet almost.
they call
It
them
does.
cabins, Caribou cabins.
Caribou cabins.
Yeah.
So they don't want you sitting around anymore?
There's outside seating.
Oh, okay.
There's outside seating, but it's actually kind of a prime COVID way to get coffee in a way. You never go inside. It's all arm's length, get your thing, go sit outside. It's
Or
pretty
drive
nice.
through, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Anyone else have anything under other business? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion by Casey, second by Smokey. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's adjourned.